damn with that fucking intro. Want to give a major shout out to Tom Smith of the Acacia Strain for blessing us with that fucking disgusting track. That is the new intro track for the BREWtally Speaking Podcast. I am one of your hosts, John, and with me as always is Dan. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I wish that were true. I wish I was always there. I know I missed one, the dead one, but, these things happen.
I mean, when you put out 3 episodes basically in a matter of 4 days.
Yeah, plus Instagram Live, all that stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a fun time over on our socials. Actually, it was kind of funny. I don't know if you saw Finn McKinsey, the punk rock MBA, was posting about on his Facebook the other day something to the effect of like, what have you seen to drive engagement or something like that. And I was like, honestly, as stupid as it sounds, it was just doing Instagram Lives. We had maybe about 100 people, actually about 30 or 40 people typically that would see our profile. Then all of a sudden it jumped up to almost 900 people over the course of a full week. And I attribute that solely to doing the Instagram Lives and the people we had. So if you didn't see those, we chatted with Mark from Nothing More, which is a lot of fun, sharing a lot of cool different beers. We talked to Ken Susi, who showed us his awesome photography stuff. That one's actually up on YouTube. And we had Patrick from Ice Nine Kills. That was a lot of fun. And we did one this past weekend with Amir, Duroc of X-Orgy, of Julian K. And that was a lot of fun. That was for the 320 festival that Chester Bennington's wife put on for like mental health awareness and all that kind of stuff. So it was a lot of fun. We've been doing those. Might do those a lot more because we have a shitload of content in the can.
Yep. It's this is the time to get it. You know, I mean, I hate to say that. I want to say I don't want to say I'm benefiting from the pandemic as much as just getting a silver lining on it. You know, it's a good thing that came out of a bunch of bad things. Is the politically correct way to say it?
Yes. So it was definitely a thing for us where when all of this started, I don't think, just full transparency, I don't think we thought it was going to be what this has become. So we stacked a shitload of interviews on, and then a bunch more came our way, and now we're kind of in a hole that we have to dig ourselves out of. We're literally, and Dan has seen the emails, we're having to turn people away, unfortunately, just because I'm back to work as of 2 days ago, as of when we're recording, so my schedule is a lot less loose than it has been. But I think in the interim, the Instagram Lives have been a lot of fun. I'd like to keep doing those. I think they're a lot of fun. I don't have to prep for them. They just exist in the moment, and that is a fucking blast to me.
Yeah, and everybody gets to see that raw, unedited stuff, that real stuff, and that's cool. I thought it was cool. I was reading that thread that Finn had posted, and, I was thinking, and it was funny because you'd posted that, you're like, yeah, man, like we had this much of a boost, and even he was impressed. He was like, wow, that's actually quite a bit of interaction. And it's kind of like, it's kind of like in Lord of the Rings, when Gandalf grabs that, all-seeing crystal from one of the hobbits, and he's like, you never know who may be watching, and that is absolutely true. Like you have no idea how many people are actually out there watching and actually giving a crap about what you're doing, and so it's always great to see that. Like it's great to see people kind of coming out and kind of interacting and that sort of stuff. I think it's the way to go, man. Like maybe the way we're doing it is wrong by recording it and putting it out. Like it's starting to seem that way.
Yeah, I don't know. I have done literally no prep. Like to be completely honest, everyone that has agreed to do them, I'm like, really? You sure? And then even more so, like Ken posted everything on the Unearth socials and his own. Patrick posted everything on his own, not the Ice 9 stuff. Julian K posted it on theirs. Amir posted on his stuff. And same with Mark from Nothing More. It has been pleasantly shocking that everyone not only is agreeing to do it, but then actually pushing it, which, as Dan was saying earlier, he wasn't on for the Dead episode. Those dudes, Joe and Dead, shared our chat with them that we posted on Sunday. So thanks to them for that. Still not used to that. Still not used to people caring that, they're on their show.
Yeah, no, it's nice. And, I a lot of the times, we go back and forth about like, oh, this person was on the show and they didn't share it or whatever. I think up until recently, everybody's been extraordinarily busy. And that's the whole thing. It's not that everybody's just sitting there idle. I mean, there's still stuff going on. especially if you look at the kind of stuff that we're doing. But like, these people are like, now it's almost a little bit more personal. It's like, oh, hey, yeah, I had this really cool chat. You guys should check it out. Versus having to try to reshare something when you're on tour or when you're, going place to place to place to place, or maybe you did 20 interviews in a day. And this has been a much more organic experience of just like, hey, we're just going to come on, we're going to talk. It's going to be awesome. And I think not only the people that are being interviewed are responding well to that, but the listeners and viewers as well.
Yeah, I think the one thing that's been pleasantly surprising is, because typically the guest and I on the Instagram Live things are, kind of rehashing some of the stuff we've talked about, or been like, hey, it's been a little bit since you were on the show, this, that, and the other. And I've had people message, us on Instagram or whatever, or leave comments like, really enjoyed this, didn't know you did an interview, didn't know anything about your show, went back, listened to the other interview or other interviews, like now I'm a subscriber. And it's just been crazy to see the people following and all that. I hope, we made a joke a while ago that like when the podcast, suddenly has almost a couple thousand downloads in one day, we're like, who died? What happened?
Yeah, something's going on behind the scenes that has nothing to do with us. Yeah. So
it's one of those that like any modicum of success that we get, it's always like, are you guys sure? Like what happened?
Yeah. Why us?
Yeah, why us? Not because we do a good job or anything like that. It's more like, what happened? What did we do wrong? But all of that aside, it's been a really interesting last couple of weeks. And this was actually a chat, that we haven't announced the guest as we kind of quickly wrap this up to get into the interview, but it is with Joey Bradford of The Used. This was another one that has kind of been a long time in the making. I knew about Joey once Black Cloud Collective, Brandan Saller from Atreyu's other band, started. And, I kind of started following them, really liked him. And it was just kind of like an offshoot thing that then became Hell or High Water. Then they started getting a little bit of notoriety. I was actually doing the album review for Vista for the Talk To Me podcast website. And I was trying to do the same thing I did with the He Is Legend Few record, which is do a podcast that will air on our show over here, but then I'll use pull quotes for the album review. And, I just couldn't get Joey to do it. At the time, they were touring, just busy, basically, as Dan was saying earlier. And so I reached out to him and was trying to get him on to do something for Hell or High Water. And then, he was doing stuff in Atreyu for a little bit, and then magically became the new guitar player of The Used. And I was like, well, there went that opportunity. Never will fucking happen. And very, very thankful. I hit him up on Facebook one day, like he was commenting on something about some press he was doing or something to that effect. And I was like, yo, like, I sent out an email. Are you guys just not doing press, or like what's going on? And then he sent me a message and was just like, yo, dude, like, let's fucking do it. And you're going to hear that in about probably a minute. So huge thanks to Joey for doing this. We kind of go a little bit all over the place. A lot of fun talking about the new Used record. I think this is the first Used record I've liked since Heartwork, and that's been almost a decade, I think, at this point.
John, you cannot give your opinion about things on the internet. It never goes well. It always ends badly. Trust me, I know.
Well, you do that for the gimmick, though.
I always give my honest opinion. People don't always love that, but, it's just one of those things. I definitely have not yet experienced what you experienced when trying to talk about this. It was pretty harmless. I could have thought of some much more horrible things to say about the more recent Used records. So, I think you were very fair.
So without further ado, this is my conversation with Joey Bradford of The Used, and we will talk to you on the backside of it. So I had the pleasure of talking to Joey Bradford, guitarist for The Used, Hell or High Water, the Goodman, and I mean, there's so many things that you do, and we'll kind of touch on all these things. But first and foremost, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, me and my family are hanging out on our property, and laying low like everyone else.
As of when we're recording this, you are a week away from your first record with The Used, entitled Heartwork, which is going to be out April 24th via Big Noise. I have to give you a little bit of shit and bust your balls. Did none of you get told about, the classic Carcass record by the same name and like, hey, maybe don't call it Heartwork?
Oh, no, we saw that, and we thought that was super badass. Carcass is a dope band, too. I think it's a different world, so I don't think people are going to be confused by which record they're listening to, but, yeah, mad respect to Carcass, for sure. It obviously takes on a completely different meaning with our band, and, it plays on a lot of the band's history with different records, and yeah, we're stoked on it.
Yeah, no, it's just one of those things. Like, I remember when the album, when I saw the title in passing, like a music site, I was like, oh, I didn't realize it was like some kind of anniversary for that record, and then went back and looked at it for a second, and then I was like, oh, no, oh, okay. Like, awesome.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, that's, you know what, though? If there's that many, like, crossover Carcass and the Used fans, then that's badass. That's really cool.
You never know. I mean, that's kind of the interesting thing about, Used fans, and I would say maybe not Carcass fans, but from, Used fans, we're of that age where, there is a lot of crossover as far as the bands and so forth that we all grew up listening to,
100%.
Thanks to being, a part of the MTV generation when that was still a thing. So you never know.
For sure. No, I love it, man. I mean, me personally, I grew up a heavy music fan and a fan of the Used and a fan of pop punk and rock and roll. It was all over the place. So our whole generation is an eclectic version of what exists now. And the Used is like one of those bands that's always done that, right? It's kind of like a collection of everything that is aggressive all thrown together.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of a perfect segue into talking about the record a little bit. I do think that this new record honestly showcases a lot of the elements that the band has incorporated over these last almost 2 decades at this point. How did you find the writing process to be with the guys, with this being your first record with them?
I mean, when we started talking about making a record, we didn't really have a plan. So we just were like, okay, let's get together in a room and start writing some songs, just the four of us. And we ended up spending a couple months writing at my house. We wrote about 24 songs, stuff that we're really proud of. But then once we made the decision to go make the record with John Feldman, I mean, it was kind of just like a no-brainer. Like, okay, let's just go back to square one and let's go write with John. And, for me, going into the history of the Used and John Feldman was obviously intimidating a little bit. But, they made me feel super comfortable right from the get-go. And, having toured with the guys for a couple of years now, like we're brothers, and it's strong vibes for sure. And John's such a sweetheart. He's a genius man, and he was able to pull stuff out of me that I didn't know I was capable of. And we wrote some insane songs, and it's crazy to even talk about me being a part of the record. It's because I grew up a fan, and it's insane, man. We're really, really excited for you guys to hear the rest of the album.
One of the things I like to ask when talking to people who have worked with John Feldman, which is a very small list, I know John is a very hands-on kind of producer, and some musicians
Absolutely.
may not be into that, because they come in and they're these are the songs, and we just need someone to press record, and that's how it needs to be. But then you have people, I think John brings the best out of a lot of people because he, as a musician himself, wants to bring the best out, and he's very collaborative from everything that I've seen and heard. So in that regard, I would assume you maybe haven't worked with someone that's that hands-on. What was that like working with John, with you personally?
Well, honestly, it was, it was kind of right in my wheelhouse. John's very similar to the way that I've kind of always been a songwriter, where, he's just like, okay, let's go. Sit down with a guitar, and you have a part, and then record the part, and then move on to the next thing. And, very much on the fly. I've kind of always been that type of songwriter. So I think I kind of got lucky and felt really comfortable from day one. Like I've never been one to sit and stew with a part outside of a lyric. So, jumping into John's scenario where it's very much like be ready and be on your A game and let's crush a song as quick as we can that is magic, and really capture it in the moment. He's such an incredible, version of that. He's the best producer I've ever worked with, and he's very much a part of the band when you're writing a song. And I think, we really submitted to that process, and it's like, John's best interest is our best interest. We want to write the best song and, make people feel something incredible when they listen to each one of the tracks. So, John was really inspiring with each song to feel different and to have its own voice. So what an insane experience.
You kind of had mentioned obviously touring with the band over the last couple of years and obviously doing some of those anniversary tours that the band had done. I've asked this question to a few other people before, and I don't know if maybe I'm just not explaining it well or if it's just something that really doesn't exist from a creative standpoint. But being a fan of the band and kind of playing those songs, those iconic songs and albums live, did it kind of maybe inform you, kind of like seeing the way maybe the band likes to write? Do you find things like that in playing with the Used, and then maybe you go, okay, like maybe this song needs something like, and then you're able to reference another song that you've played and kind of gotten to know in your DNA and be able to bring that out in this new record?
I think maybe subconsciously, just from playing these songs every night, maybe there's like tendencies that I can draw inspiration from, but I don't think that was in my headspace at all. Like we really, each one of the songs just kind of like flowed, and it was kind of magic. We would start each day, sit down with an acoustic guitar and a piano or whatever it was, and kind of play what's familiar. Like, and that being said, like me growing up in my whole journey, like I was influenced by the Used in my early songwriting too. So I'm sure it's gonna be apparent in anything that I'm playing too. But the crazy thing with this band is, if you write something that is truly genuine in the moment with these guys and have Bert sing over it like that, it just becomes the Used. And they've always done that. They've always had a way to incorporate modern elements into their sound and have it sound genuine. So for me to be able to be a part of it and come in and not feel like I'm forcing any sort of like, I want to make sure I sound like the Used. It was just kind of like, let's have you sound like you. And that is what this band is. So, and I think it worked. I think we have a really, really special album. And, for me personally, it's obviously an insane accomplishment.
Something a little bit kind of more about that. You were speaking to, picking up an acoustic guitar or maybe someone jamming on a piano or whatever. Some of these songs aren't, I'll say, traditionally arranged based on playing on instruments when you hear the final versions. How many different iterations of some of these songs were there over the, process of making this record? Was there maybe an acoustic-y kind of ballad for something that then turned into more of an electronic kind of bass song? Like, do you have an example of anything like that?
There was definitely moments where, we went in and the scratch guitar was an acoustic guitar and to get some vocals. But I think each song, we were so in the moment with each song that like kind of wherever it was guiding us, be it, a synth part starting the song or an electric guitar or a bass riff or whatever it is. I think it was coming to us as we were writing the songs. There wasn't much like, outside of bells and whistles, once the bare bones were recorded and digging into that over time. But, I don't recall us like recording a song with drums and guitar and then it turning into Cathedral Bell, which, that particular song, which, is part of what you're referencing, just kind of like, the beat was something that we were playing with and then the vocals came. And from there, it just kind of, it was breathing life into those electronic elements to complement what the vocals were doing. And it's such a beautiful song and a powerful place when we were writing that it just kind of like, it's so simple, but so effective. And I love that song so much. Obviously it doesn't sound like The Taste of Ink, but I think that's what's cool about being in 2020 and, where all of us in the band are at. And John's influence being like, this is going to make the song really cool if we like it, and we loved it. So
it's just always interesting sometimes when you talk to people or even after the fact of a record coming out, and you find out that it's like, oh, like this whole record was, just me and a guitar. And then it's like, when you hear it, it's like, there's no quote unquote live instrumentation on it. And you're like, wow, really? Like this started this way and somehow became this full on like electronic thing. Like that's interesting. Like how how an idea can start and then metamorphosize into something completely different. to where you're like, wow, the journey of it is crazy.
And for me, it becomes like a really exciting challenge to, figure out how to pull it off live and do the instrumentation ourselves and kind of do some of the stuff that the band hasn't done in the past. And a song like that, I think, is a cool opportunity for us to try some fun new stuff and see what happens.
Kind of speaking of tones and all that kind of stuff, obviously being a guitar player, there's a ton of guitar tones and textures all over this record. And,
oh, yeah.
Kind of wondering how did some of those kind of take shape? Like, when you're doing demo stages or whatever, are you thinking like, okay, like, because there's even different styles that you're playing in, even within one song. And, sometimes
Sure.
It's interesting to kind of think about that. Like, okay, you might be using like a 5150 or something like that. But then it's like, yeah, actually like a nice Marshall stack with kind of like a nice warmer tone than that would be more preferred, or using a Fender or, things like that.
Yeah.
So how much experimentation really did it take for you to kind of dial in all these tones and find the right thing and kind of walk through that process a little bit?
Yeah, it was really great for me. Obviously John's a guitar player, and Scott, one of the engineers there, he's a guitar player. I mean, all of John's guys are guitar players, so they all come from, they're just as excited as I am to get like a really cool tone. So, we had a bunch of different fuzz pedals, which we used heavily all over the record, but differently every time. I think it wasn't like something that we did on purpose where it was like, oh, we already used this sound, let's use something different. I think we were just flying by the seat of our pants. So it's like, all right, let's put this lead over it. I have an idea. Let's throw a fuzz. I'll use the baritone and let's see what it sounds like. It's like, oh, that's great. Let's keep it. And that ends up being the final part on the album that you'll hear. And, that writing that way, and especially with tones, is so fun because I'm not repeating myself ever, which, sometimes you want a record to be really, really cohesive with tones, and sometimes you want each song to have its own life. And I think this was what we were trying to do, and it was so much fun. Yeah, I'm really, really proud of all the guitar tones. And like you said, like, it's something I've always loved to do is, play like a super guttural baritone octave low guitar part and then immediately go into a neck pickup Fender twin clean delay for the verse. Like, I think that's something cool that the youth always did that I loved, and maybe I picked that up along the line and brought it here. Yeah,
it's just kind of always funny because it's like, I think now with the ability to bring Kempers out with you and so forth and have them kind of be tailored to your switches, between cap profiles and all that kind of stuff, you can actually pull some of this stuff off live, where before the backline you would need and the pedal board you would need to pull off all this shit, let alone the various tunings in the middle of a song or a different guitar swap, would just be too much money to do. But now you're able to kind of play some of these things and do some of these things where it's not just that's for the record only and we'll never play it live because just logistically we can't. Right.
Yeah. And that's where, I've kind of evolved and adapted into that digital world in the last couple of years. And, the technology is out of control. It's like you can really capture the sound of the insane amps that you own and bring them on the road everywhere in the world. So it's the same every single show. And, and that's like you said, the backline problem. That's why it jumped into the digital world is, wasn't able to find the right head everywhere, wasn't able to find the right cab everywhere. And, once you're playing on different gear at a show in front of 10,000 people, it's stressful. It doesn't make it, it's not the easiest thing to pull off, but yeah, I mean, the digital world is pretty insane now. And, it's cool because we can go make a record and not feel like we're cheating anybody, but, really step up to the challenge of figuring out how to pull it off live. And why not? I love it.
Kind of switching gears a bit, you, as we've been saying throughout this, you've kind of had a pretty wild ride these last few years, jamming with Brandan from Atreyu in Black Cloud Collective, which eventually became Hell or Highwater, and then filling in for Travis in Atreyu, and then all of a sudden now you're in the Used. As someone who's kind of followed you since the Black Cloud Collective days of kind of learning who you are through the side project, kind of go through this last few years and kind of how everything just kind of kept manifesting itself into the perfect situation for you to kind of come in and fill some rather large shoes for a lot of different people.
Yeah. bizarre, super bizarre. I mean, I've obviously played in Hell or High Water. We did that for about 7 years, put a couple records out. But again, we were always kind of like, you know, the side chick to Atreyu, which was understandable. I mean, they've made their mark and people want to see them play and they deserve it. So, you know, when Atreyu jumped back into album time again this last go around a couple of years ago, you know, I started doing crew work again. I was guitar teching for Good Charlotte for a little bit and kind of bouncing around, working with bands, filling in for people. And then, yeah, I heard about the Used opportunity, and I went and tried out. And there was a bunch of other people that tried out, and I kind of, you know, I didn't have any idea if I was going to be the guy. And my daughter was 3 days old when I went and tried out. Like it was booked weeks in advance, and, you know, Bert was in town for a couple of days, and my wife was a couple weeks late delivering, and I kept emailing him like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it, guys. Like, you know, more important things. So, but yeah, my daughter was born, and then a few days later, my wife was like, you should go do this and see what happens. And yeah, pretty wild. And then here we are a couple years later, and got an incredible record with Feldman that's out Friday. And yeah, it's been a whirlwind. My whole career's kind of been like that, just kind of like bounced around where I'm needed, and you know, just kind of do what I can to stay involved and work with great people, and got really lucky here. And this band's like the sweetest people in the world, and all of our families get along, and, you know, I think we make really good music together. And yeah, feeling really blessed these past couple of years.
What do you think has allowed you the opportunities to be able to take advantage of the opportunities like you have over the years when they've been able to present themselves to you? What do you attribute to being able to capitalize on those moments?
I think I've always been good at just kind of putting myself out there. You know, I wouldn't say I'd say yes to anything, but, you know, I was kind of always like, if I would hear of someone needing someone to fill in or something, you know, I was kind of always working crew or filling in for a band. And while I was doing that, I was kind of keep my ear to the ground. And, you know, and sometimes I was even reaching out to people when I was guitar teching for some bands. I would reach out to friends every once in a while. Hey, you know, anyone that needs a guy, you know, anyone looking for a bass player, guitar player, you know, and we were always writing songs with Hell or High Water, and we were always doing that. But, yeah, it was just kind of like, how can we continue to play music and take care of my family and pull this off, you know? And genuinely didn't expect to get an opportunity to play in a band that I grew up loving and have been, you know, massively a part of every record they've ever put out. Is a big deal to me. So it's really cool to be a part of the band's history and get to be here.
What has been one of the bigger challenges for you in stepping into the role of the Used? I mean, obviously filling in for Atreyu, you know, they're of a certain level of size band, but I think like the Disrupt tour that I saw all of you guys on this past summer. Was it this past summer? I don't know. It's been so long ago now.
Yeah, it feels like one year, but it was summer.
Yeah. But, you know, seeing you guys on that, obviously, you know, Atreyu was lower build than the Used were. And so, you know, I'm just kind of thinking of the transition, you know, from Hell or High Water, you know, kind of getting on decent opening slots on some package tours and so forth to, you know, jamming and doing stuff with Atreyu for a little bit and then getting to the Used. You know, I feel like that comes with a certain level of responsibility and professionalism that maybe not everyone is able to just step into right away. So what was that kind of journey like for you?
You know, Hell or High Water had toured with the Used. We did a couple weeks with them a few years prior, and we, you know, in that short period of time, we became buds with them. And, you know, I wasn't super close with the guys in between that tour and joining the band, but we would run into each other at festivals, and it was always a good time, and it was a good vibe. And, you know, but jumping into this band and having been a kid in the front row of a sold out, you know, 10,000 seater growing up, it was a trip for sure. You know, it was a bit of nerves and, but I think that what made it super comfortable when we first started touring, my first show with the band, we played a festival in, I think it was South Carolina or something like that. But like half of the bands I'd ever worked for, filled in for, or like, you know, the majority of my group of friends were all playing the same festival. So it made it really comfortable. We would go on stage, and I have 30 homies on the side of the stage, and some guys that I used to be their merch guy, and they're just like, "What is going on?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm feel the same way." So, but yeah, I think this whole thing is, feels like such a really cool privilege. So, it's just been exciting the whole time. It hasn't felt like scary or a job or anything other than really exciting. And these guys are so talented, and they work so hard. We run our whole set every night before we go on stage, and we make sure it's a really good vibe. I mean, we're grown dudes with families, and we got to leave our families to go on tour, and give people that experience that changed us growing up and is going to continue to change us people moving forward. So, we make it worth it, and it's insane. It's super crazy. I love it.
So, obviously you sent me the link to this upcoming EP that's coming out. It's the first proper follow-up to Vista at this point. And, what made you choose these 3 songs? Because I mean, knowing Brandan and seemingly, and we'll talk about some of the other projects you have at the very end, it seems like you guys just write and write and write and write. So what made you choose these 3 songs to kind of be the next continuation of Hell or High Water moving forward?
Well, these sessions were from when we recorded Vista.
Okay.
So it was some songs that we had, we had finished and we had loved. And same thing for that record. We had written I think it was over 50 songs that we had completed demos for before we went to the studio to make the album. But, so we had recorded 2 more songs at Sonic Ranch that we finished that we kind of just held on to maybe for this situation. We were waiting for a pandemic to have music to release. But yeah. And then I'll Be Waiting, which is a song that's going to be on there as well, is a song that we had put out a few years back, just kind of on our own. We put it out just on a YouTube video, so we figured we'd get it out for everyone to hear. And but yeah, the 2 new songs no one's heard. We were passing them around the past few weeks, and we all were like, "Oh man, this is really good! We forgot about these songs. This is cool." There was some discussion of "Oh, let's put out some of the old demos," and I was like, "No, I don't want to just throw some junk out there. What else we got?" And we're like, "Oh, we totally have these incredibly mixed, beautiful songs that we wrote and are proud of." So yeah, super excited for people to hear that. It's really cool.
What I think is interesting about all 3 of these songs, and kind of speaks to the diversity of Hell or High Water collectively, Believe in Us is just kind of, more of a straight ahead kind of a rocker. I kind of feel like, it's got really cool tones. It's got, like I was telling you the other day, it's got those dual guitar, harmonies and so forth that are going on. And it's just, really fun. And it's Irrational kind of is a little bit of a different vibe from everything else. Kind of feels a little bit kind of like R&B-ish a little bit to me.
Hell yeah.
And then it's I'll Be Waiting, I think I told you, is the best song that Mutt Lange and Bryan Adams never put out on the Waking the Neighbors record.
Oh, that's great.
So, I mean, it's one of those things I think a lot of people are going to find the diversity of this band. So if this is maybe something that they haven't heard Vista or the other stuff, I think this is a really good, little sample bite-size piece for them to kind of maybe get in and go backwards.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm excited to finally put these out there. It's I have all the songs just kind of in a folder on my phone, and I kind of forget that we didn't put stuff out. So when we investigated, I was like, oh yeah, I know that song. So yeah, it's exciting, and I think it's just cool. We kind of just halted fairly swiftly, and never really made any plans to pick back up or when that's going to happen. So it's cool to kind of throw some stuff out for some fans and for the world to hear some music that deserves to see the light of day. It's fun. Super, super stoked. And that's coming out on Spine Farm as well. And, they've always taken really good care of the band, and yeah.
So if having 2 bands wasn't hard enough, you also have the Goodman and Hollows as well. Obviously, with Goodman, you kind of explained in the Spotify bio part, that these are kind of songs and demos that you had floating around between doing some used tours and so forth, and just, a lot of life experiences happening. But kind of a little bit more, how broad of a time period are we looking at for these songs, and kind of what made
Very
you decide
broad.
what made you decide that now was the time to get these out?
It's I've had these songs, man. Some of them I started writing in, I think we were saying like 2007, 2008, I think were my first demos for a couple of these. And it was just songs, I when I started writing music, and when I was like 18, 19, I was mostly with an acoustic guitar, and, I played bass in a rock band and did that. But when I was writing music for myself, it was more kind of like Americana stuff on an acoustic. So, and over the years I've had different engineers in my studio, and it'll always be like, oh, let's record a song, and I'll record one of my old songs. And, before I knew it, I have quite a few, and I never really had, I never really had a platform to put music out for people to really hear it. And I liked the songs. It was kind of one of those things where I was courting these songs. And then, this kind of situation came up, and I was like, all right, everyone's just dumping their stuff online. Like, I'm really proud of this stuff. And I think people might like to listen to it, and maybe it can connect with some people, and just put it out there. No intentions. I don't have any plan for it other than, sometimes I write songs like that, and maybe now I'll put them out from time to time.
Yeah, definitely listening to it the last 24 hours or so there, I feel a lot of, I don't want to say teen angst. I don't think that's the word I'm necessarily looking for. I just feel a lot of melancholy, like a lot of like.
Oh yeah, I was a sad boy when I wrote that. Yeah. I was so sad.
It definitely comes across, and it feels like this, this kind of purer sense of music when maybe it's, like case in point, I was talking to JB from August Burns Red probably about a month ago at this point. And, I was talking about when they did, some of their anniversary tours, did they look back on some of the stuff that they were writing and go, wow, I can't believe I was, writing these things. And JB's like kind of quite the opposite. I was like, man, I can't believe I would write something that's so terribly arranged and so forth. And then, we were kind of talking about this time period when you're a musician, and, maybe you're kind of more brave because you don't know better to not do those things, and that's kind of what makes things interesting and different and makes it more uniquely
absolutely.
you. And I feel like maybe some of these songs, I'm kind of thinking really Smoking in Bed kind of is like a song where I'm like, I don't know if you're not maybe a young 20-something when you write something like that maybe you would express yourself those ways, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, honestly, the majority of these songs, it's heartbreak music. I was going through a rough breakup, and I was like 19, 20, 21 around the time that all those songs were written. So it was like trying to figure out who I am and trying to figure out how to, stay on the road and do my music thing and navigate a relationship and all this stuff. But it worked out. It's my wife and I, we split up for a little bit when we were kids, and here we are. We got a 2-year-old. She's a badass. It all works out, but you get great music from heartbreak. I tell you what.
Dashboard Confessional made a whole career out of it.
There you go. And Chris is like the sweetest dude in the world and the most insanely talented. Yeah, rad band.
Well, where can everyone find you and or any of the bands or anything you want to plug online?
Oh man, you can. I guess you follow my Instagram. I kind of have all that stuff on there. I'm BREWtally on the old Instagram, and if you want to go to Spotify and just search all them band names, we got Hollows and the Goodman and whatever else I do. I don't know. Go listen to the Used record, guys. Go listen to Heartwork.
Are you? I just saw a release today. Lamb of God's pushing their record back due to like the vinyl production and physical production of a lot of their pre-orders and stuff being delayed due to all the stuff that we're in. Was there really any talks of doing that as a result of maybe running into the same issues, or were you guys far enough ahead of all of that you're able to at least fulfill everything on that front?
We're pretty far ahead of everything. I mean, we haven't changed our plan of releasing the record, April 24th for a long time. I mean, there was discussion of wanting to put it out earlier, I think, but this was kind of always the plan. And our team is incredible, and they've been working with this band forever, and they're crushing it. All the cool pre-order stuff's already going out.
It's already, I was gonna say, all the cool shit's already sold out. I saw.
Oh yeah, it's pretty wild. People are showing up, and it's really exciting. I mean, it's exciting for me to to be a part of this chapter of the band and see all this fun stuff happening.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I've been trying to get you for actually since Vista came out, before it came out actually, because I was doing a write-up on the record for a friend's website, and I was like, oh, it'd be cool to get Joey on here and talk about all the different shit he's got going on this. And then it just, as I kind of kept following you from there, it was just like, man, you are like the most connected man in the industry over the last couple of years. It seems like just popping up everywhere.
I'm just trying to stay involved and hang out with all these talented, awesome people. And yeah, man, it's really, really a blessing.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you again for taking the time, and looking forward for everyone else to hear this record, and enjoy the rest of your evening. So that was my conversation with Joey Bradford of The Used. If you haven't checked out Heartwork, you should go do it. It's been out for a couple of weeks now. We kind of wanted this to be in a nice transitional point between the Used record being out for a little bit and the Hell or Highwater record EP being out for just a little bit. So both of those things are out. You heard us talk about both of those projects. And the Hell or Highwater EP, I really like that band. I like how different the three songs are that they put out for it. And like we said in the intro, I think this is the most interesting Used record since Heartwork. I think it's honestly just, I mean, every band says this at this point, this late in their career, but it is the most used record. It sounds like everything they've done over the last 20 years, but like perfected. It's got one of the heaviest songs I've ever heard, which started some Twitter beef, quote unquote.
Gotta love that beef.
Well, you did see that the guys in Chamber said that it was a lift of their song, right?
I did not see that, no.
Okay. So, I talked about that, actually, with Brendan from Counterpart/End, and I'll leave it there. We talk a little bit about this whole Used Chamber beef, and I'll tease that episode for that. So, it is a thing that apparently started some beef, and the kids went crazy on the old Twitter machine, and as a result, I did my thing where I chimed in and said that maybe it's because I'm old. I don't hear a lift of the Used from the Chamber song. However, the song that Chamber's using definitely sounds like a lift of the Dillinger Escape Plan's 43% Burnt to me.
That's interesting. Yeah, I need to dig more into this because I love reading this stuff. Like these, like, you stole my song. It's more like looking at a car wreck, really, because you know how brutal both sides can come out on this.
But yeah, so Twitter beef galore. Dan will have to get educated and checked up on that, and then we'll talk about it on another episode, since it is something that's coming up anyway. All that aside, let's slowly start wrapping this up. Beer. In quarantine times, these are the things that kind of get us by. I know this sounds like a fucking name-droppy kind of thing, but something I've really been enjoying in this quarantine is actually texting with Mark from Nothing More, and him and I going back and forth with the various beers that we are having and enjoying, that we found online that we're looking for, just all kinds of shit. So it's been a lot of fun, and I get kind of jealous because some days, like, I'll be like, oh fuck, I want to go get some new beer, but like I'm stuck at home and I don't have any reason to even remotely go out. And then like the other day I went back to work, like I said, and so I decided, hey, there's a fucking beer store right behind my job, so I have, like, you know, it's not like I'm going out of my way to go to it. So I opted to go, and I got 3 beers, one of which I am drinking now, which is the O'Fallon Dad's Original Oatmeal Stout. It's just okay. O'Fallon is really hit or miss for me. They have a smoked porter that is pretty interesting. But this, let me take another sip. Yeah, I just kind of get more of like a sweet oatmeal flavor. So nothing too great, nothing terrible. Like, I would probably get this again if I was like trying to make a mix and match 6-pack and I needed another random beer. You know the throes of that where you're like, there's just nothing else grabbing my attention here, but I need to grab at least one more, so I'll just go with the standby. For Dan, it would just be a 6-pack of Space
every single time. Yep, you've got me on that one. Don't have anything tonight. I decided to go with just some like spiced black chai tea, and I always do like 2 or 3 tea bags full and let it sit for like 45 minutes, so it essentially turns into battery acid. But that's how I like to drink it. So there we are.
Do you spice it up with like a cinnamon stick or like anything like that, like any garnish?
Not really. I like it to be as raw and flavorful as possible, if that makes sense. I know I'm describing tea like I describe hard liquor, but it almost has the same effect as far as flavor intensity. I can't really do too much of that more mellow stuff. I think that's why I like the line of chai teas that I have, because they're just they're a little bit more intense, flavorful. Whereas, like, to me, most tea that people enjoy just tastes like warm water to me.
I've been on a big just green tea kick lately, like green tea with like lemon green tea. Just real basic, Lipton, super easy. Get like 2 bags, super solid.
I've been getting a lot of my tea loose, so I've got this little, we call him the Tea Rex, and I just fill him up with tea leaves and drop him into my giant cups, and he does a great job of making that tea great. I'm always afraid I'm going to melt him, though, because I try to make the water so hot, but it's neither here nor there. I'm not like a big craft tea guy, but if I ever start making some more money, I could definitely see myself going that route.
Like I said, it looks really fun, and like there's so many different loose teas and all that kind of stuff that are out there, but it's just like you gotta buy like a steeper, and then you gotta buy like all these things, and like your initial investment's like almost $100 to make tea, and then you're just like, nah, I'm cool, I got my Keurig and like a coffee mug, I'm good.
Absolutely.
But all that aside, if you would like to keep up with The Used, simple enough. Facebook, Instagram at We Are The Used. Twitter at We Are The Used. If you'd like to keep up with Joey, you can find him at Brutalfort on Instagram and Twitter. Once again, Heartwork is out now by The Used, which, I mean, I don't know if anyone else thought that was funny, you know, giving him a little bit of shit for the Carcass record, but...
you were a lot nicer than I would have been. I'd have been like, really? I mean... You're gonna try to stack yourself up to the greatest, you know, one of the greatest death metal records ever released. I mean, you're gonna do that?
Yeah. Go check out those records. Just go to Brutalford and you'll see he's really good at plugging everything. So shouldn't have to dig too far if you want to find those. Otherwise, just search The Used on iTunes or whatever, and Hell or High Water. You'll find stuff. If you would like to keep up with Dan, well, he can tell you where he can be found.
I can be found a few different places, most notably on Facebook under Daniel Terry. Nothing too special there. I'm on Twitter at DiscussMetalDan. You can send me an email at discussmetaldan@gmail.com. I've got like 400 other podcasts that I do at discussmetal.com if you want to check those out. And, all that good stuff.
And if you would like to keep up with all things this podcast, you can find us simply enough at BrewSpeakPod, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I know we keep teasing the website. It's almost done. We just, we don't want to launch something and then just kind of like keep updating it. So we're waiting for everything to kind of be perfect to then launch it out for all of you. A lot of cool stuff going to be up on there. So look for that if you want. We still have pins. Get them out of my house, please. $10. Get them shipped anywhere in the U.S.
Get you some pins. Come on.
Yes, please get you some pins. And we'll keep the plugs kind of short. For the sponsors we have, if you would like to support our sponsors, if you're able to support our sponsors during the COVID-19 pandemic situation we're all in, would be greatly appreciated. Starting off with The Bean Bastard, a local Buffalo, New York company. They are going out of their way to provide for first responders and the essential workers and all that kind of stuff. And as a two-man local independent business, it is great to see all the things they're doing. So we want to thank them for supporting us. Go over to thebeanbastard.com, get some coffee. They have mugs. They have candles. Actually, I've been burning my bourbon barrel-aged coffee candle the last couple of days, and it has been great. So go get all their stuff, support them. Head on over to Facebook and Instagram. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram at The Bean Bastard. If you would like to keep up with On Point Pomade, I know we keep saying it. I cannot wait to get my hair cut. It is just a hot mess, and as soon as I do, I am for sure going to be using my pomade again to keep my hair looking great. My beard, not so much, if you can even call it that. But if you have a beard, if you have hair that you enjoy actually doing and styling, go to On Point Pomade, use our code BSP15, save yourself 15% off your total purchase order. Let them know that we are sending you guys over there. And you can find them on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter at On Point Pomade. And lastly but not leastly is always Rockabilia.com. They are so great. They have over 500,000 items online on their store. They have just about anything you could possibly want. as far as band merch goes. I'm looking right now on their website. They have a Legalize the Used with a pot leaf, if that's your thing. I know 420 just happened. They have some old merch from the Used, like one of the old women's tank tops from like the first record, and even, if you like leather wristbands, they have those. They have a pretty sweet girls junior hooded sweatshirt. And, if kind of speaking to all the things they have a Use It shirt, which is inspired by House, the TV show. So it's not just bands, it's everything, pop culture wise, like I said. And, unlike a lot of places, if you go to like eBay or whatever, you don't have to worry about the integrity of these garments. They're 100% licensed by the band, so you're also supporting the bands in this time as well. So you're doing good for everybody. So go to rockabilia.com, and if you are a first-time user, you'll see a little thing pop up. Get 10% off your first purchase. So support those guys during all of this if you can. And thanks to all of our sponsors for supporting this show. And real quickly, want to thank Tom Smith of the Acacia Strain once again for that dope-ass intro music. If you need any intro music, if you need background music, if you need any editing stuff done, feel free to hit him up over on his Instagram, over at tsmith678. Send him a DM and get some music done. He is doing all kinds of stuff now that the Acacia Strain's not on tour, so help him stay busy, and I can definitely tell you that his rates are really affordable. So go hit him up and let him know that we sent you, because, as you heard, our shit's dope, and he can make your shit dope. And also, it doesn't have to be heavy. We were initially looking at a non-heavy track to start off the podcast, and he is in full kind of jingle writing mode right now with his fiance's podcast coming out soon. So you'll hear some more stuff that he's doing. So hit him up. And thanks again, Tom, for the track. So once again, thanks, Tom. And for the BREWtally Speaking Podcast, I am John.
And I am Dan.
And we will talk to you all next time.
Oh, that fucking sucked. Oh, that fucking sucked. Shao Kahn, what'd you think?
That was pathetic.
Yeah. Yeah. Coach, what'd you think?
Fucking embarrassing!
Okay. Okay. I mean, I knew it was gonna fucking suck, but I think those guys were a little rude. Austin Powers?
How about new?
Okay, I thought we were gonna get the Austin Powers vote. We did not. John, use that for your podcast. It fucking sucks, but you knew what you were getting into. It's your own fault. It will result in less listens. You're gonna see a decline in listeners if you start the show with that. You're gonna see 30 seconds in, the number will plummet, and I will be there at the bottom of the plummet saying, I fucking told you, don't use this fucking riff, it sucks. But it's yours.